Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. It's the 1986 World Cycling Championships. The greatest cyclists on earth battle in the prestigious professional road race for the right to claim the rainbow jersey. The event features the two greatest names in professional road racing. Fernandez of France, who will race in his last international competition, and America's Greg LeMond. They'll battle each other and the entire world-class field. The World Cycling Championships are being brought to you by 7-Eleven. People are our concern. By Gillette. And by Sun Country.
I'm Bruce Jenner, and welcome to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the Air Force Academy for the road racing portion of the World Cycling Championship. There are over 700 cyclists represented here from over 60 countries in this week-long event, and they competed on the track and on the road, and today it's the premier event, the professional road race. Cycling in the United States really has taken off in the past few years, and on a competitive level, Greg LeMond has really dominated the world. He's coming off that great victory in the Tour de France. He will be competing today. And on the international side, it's Bernard Hinault, who has been really the dominant force in cycling for the past decade. Well, he just recently announced that this will be his last professional race, and he would love to go out a winner. Now, doing the play-by-play is Brian Drever, and our color commentator today is going to be Connie Carpenter-Finney, the 1984 Olympic champion. Brian?
Thank you, Bruce. Connie, there's no question that we're going to have a great championship here today. And the one thing that sticks out in my mind is that professional teammates who have raced together all year long now become adversaries for that single gold medal and riding for their country.
That's right, Brian. Only one rider will win the race today, and it's going to be quite a challenge. They do 17 laps of this 9.5-mile circuit. They climb 580 feet per lap for almost 10,000 feet of climbing over the 162 miles that they race. It's going to be a long, demanding day.
Speaking of the day, while we might have anticipated a hot, dry day here in Colorado Springs, what we have is more like European weather.
It sure is. It's cloudy, it's overcast, it's slightly windy, and I think it kind of favors the Europeans, and it's too bad for the Americans because the race is here in America and we want an American winner. We're
going to have a great race, no question about it. Also working with us here today, our man on the street, Nelson Bales.
Thanks, Brian, and I'll be here at the start-finish line looking for those very special stories and a lot of activities that will be taking place here at the start-finish line.
We'll be right back to the World Cycling Championships in Colorado Springs, Colorado after these messages.
Championship. The race is just about ready to begin, but before we do, let's take a look at this 9.5-mile course. It is a demanding course, and earlier, Connie Carpenter-Finney had a chance to take a lap.
The Academy Road course will be a challenging one due to the 7,300-foot high altitude and 580 feet of climbing per lap. The fresh pack of riders will start near the field house together. The course takes them through the Academy campus, uphill through a fairly narrow, twisty section. Here the riders will be bunched together at the start, but this hill will get tougher as the race grinds on. After they turn onto Academy Drive, the racers hit their first quick downhill. Don't expect much breaking away here. Then it's over the first short hill, kind of a tease which will break the racers' rhythm and remind the racers of the climbing yet to come. The long descent is wide open, which will enable the racers to exceed the national 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. The turn back to the Academy near the football stadium leads the racers uphill. It's a long, demoralizing stretch and signifies the racers' first big challenge. Most of the climbing occurs between here and the finish. The right-hand turn onto what we call the roller coaster sets up a series of tight turns and steep ups and downs. It's a good place for the strong racers, like Greg LeMond and Steve Bauer, to push the pace as they try to get away. This short uphill boasts the steepest grade of the course. It's short, but it comes near the finish and will take the snap out of the fastest sprinter's legs. The finish is deceptively long and uphill. Don't expect the best sprinters to necessarily finish first.
It is a very interesting and I think deceptive and difficult course, Connie.
It is difficult, and you have to remember that it's 9.5 miles around, and the racers today will travel at 17 times.
The only thing in their favor, I think, is the cool weather. If it was a hot day, it would be really difficult.
Yeah, when I rode the course, you could see it was sunny, and today it's overcast, it's very chilly, and it's actually pretty windy, so it's quite a bit different, and it probably does favor the riders in that it won't take quite as much out of them.
We've taken a good look at the course, Connie. Let's take a look at some of the favorites, some of the names in this race.
Well, Greg LeMond is the odds-on favorite here. Of course, he just came off his Tour de France victory, and he's a big American favorite. Bernard Hinault really wants to win this year. It's his last year of competitive racing. He's won the Tour de France 5 times. Steve Bauer is a real dark horse favorite, I think. Of course, he was the Olympic silver medalist. And Jeff Pierce is a first-year pro here in America, and I think he could do something here, although he's not expected to win. My personal favorite, of course, is my husband, Davis Fini, who is picked by the Italian press to be one of the dark horse favorites as well.
Well, we're just about ready to get this race underway. The tires are pumped up. Everybody's on their bikes and as ready as they're going to get. There's Bernard Hinault, the 5-time Tour de France champion, the Badger. His main rival, Greg LeMond, the current Tour de France champion and a former world champion as well. One of the Danish team riders with his shades on, getting ready to go here, although he doesn't need those today. Andrew Hampsten, 4th in the Tour de France, victory in the Tour of Switzerland.
Yeah, Andy's really a good young promise. You can see here the riders look a little relaxed, maybe a little nervous. There's Joop Zoetemelk, who won this race last year. He's 39 years old.
And there's Sean Kelly. Mark my words, he'll be a factor in this race, although almost no one has seen him race lately. We're definitely just about to get underway right now. 162 miles of racing to determine the world professional road race cycling champion.
You can see the riders getting started here, putting their feet in the toe clips, getting strapped in. They're not in any big rush to get off the starting line because, like you said, Brian, they have 162 miles of racing yet to go.
One of the riders from India there having a little bit of trouble getting his feet strapped in, but he'll have plenty of time to do that. There's the peloton, the entire group spread out. You can see they're very, very relaxed. No need to rush into something here that's going to take us as long as it will. Around the first turn, very colorful sight that always impresses me, bicycle racing with the many different jerseys of the different nations. It makes it easy to recognize the riders initially by the fact that they wear a uniform that is designated as a uniform of their country.
And of course they only wear that uniform here in the World Championships. They're sponsored by different teams and they wear really brightly colored team jerseys during the year. But here at the World Championships, all the guys ride under their own nation's colors.
It is interesting that a lot of them, while they are teammates and perhaps personal friends, during the course of the normal season, when it's the World Championships, it's like a heavyweight title fight. Shake hands, come out fighting, may the best man win. Back of the group here, two of the Spanish riders just sort of dancing along, trying to get their legs in motion here and warmed up a little bit, resting in the relative safety of the peloton. There's two of the Colombian team riders. As they proceed along the early part of the race course here, they'll be soon on one of the long descents as they go down along Academy Drive. Beautiful panoramic view here at the foothills of the Colorado Rocky Mountains. And the preparation on the course here has been superb. The Academy and all the people that have been responsible have put together an extremely beautiful and a very competent production for this World Cycling Championships. The first time here in the United States, and I think everybody wants to put their best foot forward.
It really is a beautiful course. You can't see the mountains, of course, because the clouds have come down. It's a little foggy this morning at the start of the race, but it is a scenic course, and it's a very challenging course as well.
I think challenging, and I think deceptive. I think that on first glance, looking at the course profile, the descriptions of the course, etc., a lot of people supposedly in the know would shrug their shoulders and say this isn't a difficult course. I disagree. I really disagree. I think that it's going to be tough. The distance and the configuration of this course is going to make it a very difficult race. We're going to have a heroic winner of this championship.
You know, Brian, this World Championships is being held at the highest altitude ever for a World Championship event. It's about 7,300 feet at the highest point, which is really hard for those who aren't used to the altitude, and a lot of the teams came in early to prepare and get used to the altitude.
Two theories about how to prepare for altitude. One theory says you come in 3 weeks to a month before, you get acclimated, you get used to it. Another theory says that for a one-day event like this, you can come in the night before, climb on your bike, and get ready to go. The two theories, Bernard Hinault, Greg LeMond, they have been here in Colorado preparing for this race, and So on the other hand, Sean Kelly arrived 2 nights ago, so he represents a theory on the other side. We'll see what happens. And we'll be right back to the World Cycling Championships here in Colorado Springs after these messages. We're back live here at the World Professional Road Racing Championships in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And with the closing laps of the race upon us, we have an 11-rider breakaway that had as much as over 2 minutes and is now down to about 1.5 minutes. This breakaway comprised of a lot of foot soldiers, but a few of the favorites as well. Connie Carpenter.
That's right. We've got Moreno, Argentin in there, who's one of the Italian favorites. After 14 laps, these were the riders who came through in this order. We had Nico from Belgium, Moreno, Argentin, one of the Italian favorites, Acacio da Silva, the Portuguese rider, Laurent Fignon, the 1984 Tour de France champion, and Charly Mottet of France.
Also in that breakaway, that 11-rider breakaway, is Rolf Goltz of Germany, Theo de Rooij of Holland, and George Mueller, the Swiss, Stefan Bricht of Sweden, and Ron Kiefel of the United States in that breakaway. A lot of motorcycles used in the race, particularly our spotter here and some of the camera motorcycles, and marshals who help keep the course safe from the spectators, keep riders on the road. Spectators have the rest of the world to deal with.
That's right. The motorcycles are out there all day. It's been a cold day. It's cold for them. It's cold for our TV crew. And the riders seem to be warming up, though. The fans are warming up to the finish, that's for sure. It's going to be an exciting finish, and anything could happen, really, at this point.
We're coming up on 2 laps to go in the race, and here we see one of the actually 3 laps to go in the race. One of the motorcycle marshals there signaling that is the case. On the back of the bunch, right here, we see Argentin, the Italian, in the blue jersey with the vertical stripes on it. And our lead group coming up the hill, the Spanish rider in the group is Celestino Prieto from Spain in the silver uniform. As they climb up the hill, there's the Holland rider, de Rooij in the orange uniform, and our 11-rider breakaway with their gap now down to about 1.5 minutes. The animation in the field is getting much stronger.
Brian, with 2 laps to go, what effect does this have on the riders? I mean, here you have this group of 11 that is, 1.5 minutes out in front of the rest of the pack. A lot of the big names are 1.5 minutes behind in the big packs. How much of an effect does that have? What's going on right now? Are they psyching each other out or what?
Well, I think a lot, and I'm sure Connie will agree with me, a lot of the early punch and counter punch has been the teams. For instance, Bernard Hinault sent his teammate Charlie Berard up the road, forcing the other nations, the other teams to do the chasing. And as soon as Charlie Berard was caught by the field, the Dutch team sent a rider up the road. The Spanish team sends a rider up the road. The United States team sends Ron Kiefel up the road. That's a punch. What's needed is a counter punch now.
And what you see now is the field chasing those leaders. That's Jonas Kuhn of Norway up in front. He does a lot of racing here in America. He's a strong rider and probably feels somewhat frustrated now. He wants to get up there. They don't want to be sitting 1.5 minutes back.
The time gap right now down to less than 1 minute, so the chase is becoming successful. And I think, as we talked among ourselves earlier in the day, that really the last 2 laps of the race is when it's going to get serious. And
really, in the riders' minds right now, what they're thinking is that when they catch these 11 guys that are out in the lead, which I think the pack feels confident that they can do that, when they catch them, you will see a counterattack. And what that means is that somebody from the field, Bernard Hinault, Greg LeMond, some of our favorites, will really start to show themselves. Seems awfully late in the race, but it's time for the move, and it's just enough time left that they can really put in 100% effort all the way to the finish.
They're winding through the feeding area here, where the team cabins, these white tents are the team cabins where the managers and the support personnel are going to be delivering their last instructions to their riders.
Well, you can really see the pack chasing now.
Very definite chase. The long single file configuration of that peloton, of that main field, tells us that the hammer has gone down. Somebody's got his foot in the floorboard right now, so to speak.
Well, the pack can see the leaders too, and they don't want to let them slip out of their sight now. They want to go after them. You can see the leaders now. It's a small group. They're still working hard. They want to stay away. This is the World Championship.
At the front right now is Rolf Goltz of Germany, the white uniform with the vertical dark stripe there, as they climb up through the finish line. Just right at the end of this bike race, you can see they've been racing for 5 hours, 48 minutes and change. That 11-rider breakaway coming across the finish line right there.
How important is it to ride in the pack, Connie? You see, you know, it seems like a pack will leave instead of an individual rider.
Well,
how important is it? How much easier is it on them?
It's a good question. It's about 25 or 30% easier to sit in behind another rider because of the drafting effect, just like in car racing. That's why this bunch, the big bunch, has really stayed together today. It's kind of a protection. But the leaders are out there really pushing, and I have to say that they're still trying to stay away, but you can see the pack is chasing, although because they are bunched up, they're not chasing as hard as I would have thought at this point.
The main field now coming through the finish line area, and we're looking at less than a minute, only about 45 seconds separating the breakaway group from the field, and the chase led by Alvaro Pino, also of Spain. He has a teammate in the breakaway, and his job may be pretending to chase at this point, although I think it's inevitable that breakaway is going to get caught, and the big names are going to settle down to racing in these final 2 laps. They've just started the 16th lap of 17. It's 2 to go.
You can see the American Ron Kiefel in that lead group. He was hoping to do well today and still is hoping to do well. He's very good in a race like this. But
and he's also local, right?
Ron Kiefel's from Wheat Ridge, Colorado. That's right, just about an hour drive from here. So this is real incentive for him to do well today. But the pack is chasing, and when the pack has the leaders in sight, it's very difficult for the leaders to stay away.
It's like chasing a rabbit out there. If you can see your prey, you chase a little harder.
We saw Bernardino coming through that time 3rd in the pack, and I think he's ready to do something. We know he wants to win this race today. There he is right there with his sunglasses on in the French tricolor jersey.
So all the big names are beginning to come to the front. There's Sean Kelly in the green uniform, his head just appearing between 2 of the riders on the front group. There's our lead group going away from us as the field is chasing hard. These corners will make it difficult for the field to see the leaders, but once they get on the long straight stretch, the long descent, and the straighter parts of the road, they'll be able to see them very easily.
Right, they're riding up through the Academy campus now. They're still going uphill. They're about to hit the highest point of the course, which is at 7,200 feet high.
Connie, you train a lot. You live in Boulder, not too far from here. You train at altitude. How much of an effect, first of all, a negative effect does it have on the rider? Because obviously there's less oxygen, it's tougher on your lungs. But then on the other hand, the air is much thinner. It's easier to ride through.
That's right. The thing about altitude is that, of course, the partial pressure of oxygen is reduced, so you don't get as much as you take each breath, so you have to breathe more rapidly. But at the same time, the density of the air is less great, so it's actually easier to ride, especially on a bicycle when you're achieving high speed. So it's a bit of a trade-off. I think most of the riders who have come into this competition came with enough time to acclimate. They came and raced in our biggest cycling event, the Coors International Bicycle Classic, before this event.
And we'll be right back to the World Cycling Championships here in Colorado Springs after these messages from our local stations. Live at the 1986 World Cycling Championships, the professional road race, a group of 11 riders had escaped for a couple of laps. The field, however, is chasing very, very hard right now. The front of the main peloton that we're looking at right now is Doug Shapiro of the United States from Dix Hills, New York, a very fine American rider.
So they're coming through again.
Once again, there's 11 riders who are broken away, and this pack of, I don't know how many is in this group, it's quite a large group at this point, is chasing them, and it's coming down to the wire here at the World Championships.
With a serious chase mounted right now by virtually all of the teams. Even though, Connie, most of the teams are represented in the breakaway, and normally you would see defensive riding by teammates, what I believe is happening is that if we can liken a team to an army, it's the foot soldiers that have done the battling so far. Now the generals are getting into the fray.
Well, you can really see that now as they move to the front. They realize they only have a little more than a lap and a half to go. We're getting into the long descent on the course, and really there's only 2 more times up the long climb, and they really have to think about doing something now. This is Bernardino, who was our pre-race favorite, of course, won the Tour de France 5 times. He really wants to win here.
Right behind him, one of the Belgian team riders. And now Greg LeMond. If you've got to look at favorites, Greg LeMond of the United States is right in the thick of things, sitting 4th in that chase. So the big names are definitely at the front making the race right now in the final 2 laps.
You see Greg LeMond tightening his toe straps, moving up to the front. Looks like he's getting ready to do something here next time they come around. You can see the Air Force Academy, the whole campus behind the descent here where the riders are racing.
They're on a downhill stretch right there, which is why they don't appear to be pedaling. We're talking about them chasing hard, and yet they're coasting down the hill. The riders in the back doing coasting, while up front they would appear to be pedaling. Here on this descent now, the Dutch team has gone to the front. They've got a man in the break. Theo de Rooij of Holland is in that 11-rider group that's ahead of this main field that we're looking at.
Connie, how much psyching goes on out there? You saw Lamont come up on Eno and just sort of pass him for a little bit, move him around. It looks like he was just trying to show up, yeah, I'm still here. Don't forget about me.
Boy, when you're in a pack like that, you try to pretend like you're not tired, you're fresh. You give kind of a posture to the other riders to let them think that you're really feeling good, and yet at the same time you don't want to give too much away. It's a lot of psyching at the end of a race like this. In the lead group here that you see, there's a lot of that going on. They have to work together. They have to keep taking their turn at the front to keep the speed up, but at the same time they don't want to spend themselves too completely because they want to have enough to win the sprint at the end.
Bruce, certainly you ran alongside somebody in a 10,000 meters and huffed and puffed to pretend like you were tired and then blew past the guy with a lap to go. It's something going to be similar to that up on the hill. No, I think a little bit of it, but...
Actually, I was huffing and puffing, and I was really tired, you know, but I didn't want to let them to know, so I ran like I wasn't tired. But I can see how there is a lot of psyche in this, because this is such a long event. You figure it's going to go about 6.5 hours, that you might as well do things out there and sort of play with each other's minds.
The breakaway group here on screen, I couldn't help but noticing the look on Rolf Goltz there, the German rider who was at the front of the field in that last shot. He is serious. These riders are kind of, in a way, Connie, caught between a rock and a hard place. While their assignment might have been to do some foot soldiering for their team captains, they see the possibility of a gold medal and one of those coveted rainbow jerseys here. So while they think they might be getting caught, they're going to keep working as well.
Well, and you know what else, Brian? If the pack continues to sit here and wait, which they look like they're doing right now, time will suddenly be it'll slip right away from them, and there won't be any time left, and those 11 riders will be out in front. And you know, we've got Ron Kiefel looking at a sprint for a victory here, so it's not a bad group of riders up there from the U.S. standpoint for sure. Ron Kiefel's proven he can win international races like this.
We're beginning to see the water bottles shed out of the field there as they take on a new fresh water bottle full of fluids or full of some sort of perhaps, what do they drink? Different things for different situations. I would think something with some sugar in it, a little energy, a little quick boost right now is what they're going to be looking at.
In a long race like this, they do drink a lot of electrolyte replacement type drinks. They do eat some food while they're riding. They drink water, and toward the end of the race, they mix a little Coke with water too, to just for that extra sugar, like you say.
This is our breakaway group, number 105 there, Charly Mottet of France in the tricolor jersey. Here's Goltz of Germany. So we swing through the breakaway group right now. There's Mottet of France, Goltz of Germany, and on the back is the Swede Stefan Bricht, wearing the sort of folded up number 235. They have a number on the frame there that you can also see.
As we see this chase going on here, the group seems to be stringing out and everybody following in there. Connie, how close are these bikes to the bikes that you go down to your store and buy? I mean, are they that trick? How important is the equipment than the rider?
Well, the equipment that these riders race on certainly is very functional, but it's also very lightweight. It's not that much different than, your 10-speed that you think about, although they have 14 speeds. The bikes probably weigh about 18 pounds. They're very efficient. The gears work very efficiently. The riders are very aware of their gears, and they're very comfortable on their bikes. They're very well fitted to their bikes, and even though they're out there working very hard, they can actively recover while on the bike because they're very relaxed when they do ride. You can see Ron Kiefel right there relaxing after he's done some work at the front, trying to recover, trying to keep rested because he's looking at trying to get through the next lap up ahead. He's looking back now to see how far ahead they are.
Keep in mind, they've already ridden over 140 miles, so they're going to start putting on those ugly, tired faces here pretty soon. There's one of the support cars for the U.S. professional team, the U.S. pro team, led, if you will, by Greg LeMond, but at this point, it's Ron Kiefel that's in the driver's seat in terms of an American's chances. He's in that breakaway while LeMond is in the main field.
Anytime you bring together a fantastic field like this, all the best riders from all over the world, you can expect surprises. And I think we're seeing a bit of a surprise right now by seeing the group out in front that is out in front. Stefan Bricht from Sweden is the youngest rider in that breakaway group. He's only 22 years old.
A little bit of jocularity going on. A couple of the Belgian riders sharing a bit of a smile right there. They have a rider in the breakaway, Nico Emmons, and so the teams that are not represented in that 11-rider breakaway are the ones that have to take their time cards and punch in and go to work, while the teams that do have a rider in the breakaway can sit back and force the chase to be made by teams that need to get up there.
See Rolf Goltz of West Germany working hard there. Stefan Bricht.
We're going to be right back to the 1986 World Cycling Championships in Colorado Springs right after these messages. Back live at the 1986 World Cycling Championships, the professional road race. Again, a group of 11 riders had been away. It looks like that breakaway is starting to come apart as the riders in that group are fighting each other. Here we see the Italian Moreno, Argentin, who had been really among some of the European press, one of the real favorites in this race, and also the Frenchman, number 99, Laurent Fignon.
And Rolf Goltz is also in there of West Germany. Of course, he's the Olympic silver medalist. You know, the Italian press was saying that Moreno, Argentin had been near the finish, I mean, at the front near the finish of the World Championship road race for the past couple of years, and they really expected to see him do something here this year. He was third in last year's World Championships.
Our motorcycle cameras are out there right with the racers, and you can see that the perspective that's given by those cameras. Here you can see that we have 2 riders chasing 3 riders, and you can actually see the physical distance in between them, not more than maybe 50 yards.
How tough is it once you get out of that pack? How tough is it to get back in, especially if you're individual or maybe just 2 guys like this? How tough is it for them to catch up?
Well, of course, at this point in the game, everybody's pretty tired, and they're giving the most that they can. And what's happening in the lead group is that you're getting attacks out of that group, trying to break it up, trying to sort out the sprinters, and everybody's making their bid now to keep this breakaway away. So it's very hard. They're riding almost as hard as they can right now to catch those leaders, not let them out of their sight. Any hesitation at this point could be the end of the race.
They appear to be pedaling very slowly, but Connie, you and I both know that they've got it in a huge gear. I mean, these guys are literally on a 10-speed in 10th gear. They're on a 14-speed in 14th gear right now, doing everything they can to maintain a speed, probably in excess of 30 miles an hour, even on the flats.
Yeah, they're working up at the top of the hill now, and you can see the look in their faces. They're working very hard. They're grimacing. They're giving all they can. They sit up on the top of their handlebars so they can breathe better, but they look very smooth. You can tell that these gentlemen ride a lot of miles.
Very aerodynamic looking trio right there, as they've formed a temporary partnership, if you will.
How many miles do you have to train, Connie, to be in an event like this?
Many of these riders will train as much as 700 miles in a week. That's 100 miles a day, and it's no wonder that they're professionals. It's a full-time job.
At the front is Moreno, Argentin, the Italian. Again, the uniforms of the country. The Italian uniform is this blue with vertical stripes on it. Rolf Goltz in the white in the West German uniform. And the third member of that trio right there is Charly Mottet of France, number 105. We'll see a picture of him. We saw a picture of him a moment ago.
Connie, how does it make you feel having the World Championships here really right in your home state, not only in your home country?
Well, it's a wonderful opportunity for all the U.S. riders, and you can see that it's helping Ron Kiefel today. Although the weather is really in the Europeans' favor, it's kind of cool and overcast, but I think we have a pretty good crowd out here considering the weather, and it's just exciting to have it here in America.
A temporary partnership is really what happens in a bicycle race. 3 different teams, 3 different nations, 3 individuals each wanting to win the gold medal, but what they must do before they get within a few hundred yards or whatever of the finish line is that they must agree to work together so that they have effectively now increased their chances of winning this race. Instead of 1 in 141. 141 riders started this race at face value with an equal chance of winning. These 3 now, if the race were to end within moments, would have a 1 in 3 chance each of taking that gold medal. They've agreed to work together for that purpose.
They're entering the roller coaster section of the course now. There's a steep little downhill followed by a sharp upgrade, and then they start coming into the finish area again. These riders definitely need to continue to work together to maintain their distance. They know they have a big pack that's thundering to catch them. You know, it's not going to be an easy task to stay away for that final lap.
We're getting pictures here of the leaders, the lead trio, and our and from helicopters and motorcycles, a combination of viewpoints here. And I think the cameramen are doing an excellent job of really giving us the perspective not only of what the racers are going through, but really when they pull back from one of those long shots. Here they're just behind the lead 3 riders. So we have a motorcycle cameraman in between the front 3 and whoever might be behind them.
I feel like we're number 4 in the pack there, holding on.
It's really one of the things I think, Connie, the riders become accustomed to having the motorcycles around. I think people maybe unaccustomed to seeing this might say, you know, get that motorcycle out of there. Professional motorcycle drivers and cameramen are a part of a racing like this, helping us bring it to the people who are watching.
We're starting to head into the steep upgrade now, and I think we talked about this hill earlier as well, Brian, that this would be a hill that would really be painful toward the end of the race. It's very steep, but it's also very short. And at this point in the race, it's hard for the riders to keep their rhythm.
There's a shot of the turn at the bottom of the long descent. You can see we're running at over 6 hours of racing so far. That's Moreno, Argentin of Italy, who we had mentioned already many times that was one of the favorites, especially obviously among the Italian press.
You can see them grimacing coming up this hill.
Mottet particularly, the Frenchman. Here comes the chase now. You can see that it's really virtually no time in between, just a handful of seconds here between the group that just went by, and this is the group of 3 riders chasing them. Significantly in this group of 3 is the blonde Frenchman with the headband on. That's Laurent Fignon, who was the 1984 Tour de France champion, has had an off year. And we'll be right back to these championships, the World Cycling Championships, after these messages from our local stations. We're back live at the 1986 World Cycling Championships professional road race. We're coming up on the final bell, the 1 lap to go signal, and now all of the early going means nothing. 1 lap to go, it is crunch time.
1 lap to go, that's 9.5 miles, another 580 feet of climbing. And for these racers, they've gone 150 miles. It's been a lot of work done so far, and it's really all coming down to this last lap. We're looking at Moreno, Argentin of Italy, who's sitting in first place. He's been riding very strongly throughout. Looks to be a strong favorite here now at this point in the race.
There it is, the bell right there. 1 lap to go for the 3 leaders. 1 lap to go for the 3 chasing riders who are just 100 yards, 200 yards maximum behind that lead trio. We're looking at a 6-rider race right now.
Looking at Rolf Goltz from West Germany. As the rest of the riders hear the bell, it's really got to give them goosebumps to know they have just 1 lap to go. It's really exciting to come down to the World Championships and to be there at the front and know that they can't afford to make a mistake at this point in the race. They have to be thinking very clearly despite being extremely tired.
1 lap to go. The bell gives you an adrenaline rush, and it also tells you that it's now or never.
It really takes a lot of concentration to ride a race of this duration, to ride a race that will last over 6 hours.
The remaining 4 riders of that original 11 coming by right now, led by number 23, Nico Emmons of Belgium. And so that 11-rider breakaway that we had with 3 laps to go in the race has now become fractured apart into a group of 3, another group of 3, and the remaining 5 or 6 riders, including Ron Kiefel of the United States.
At this point, the big pack that's chasing these leaders is about a minute and 20, a minute and 25 seconds behind. It's not inconceivable that they can't catch them in this last lap, but it would take a lot of work, a lot of teamwork among the riders in that group to go after it. Greg LeMond is leading the chase from the pack, but at this point it's Charly Mottet and Rolf Goltz and Moreno, Argentin, who are working very well together and looking at the top 3 spots right now.
They are the story. It is still really anyone's bike race, with less than 2 minutes separating the first place rider from all of the contenders, including Bernard Hinault, Greg LeMond, Sean Kelly, and the rest that we introduced at the start of the show. It really is anybody's bike race in this last lap. That's not a big enough lead to be significant.
You can see Greg LeMond right now up at the front, just catching Ron Kiefel, who has been reabsorbed. He was in that breakaway group for a few laps. Really made a bid on his part to do well here, but now it's Greg LeMond taking over the chase. He knows it's now or never, and he wants to be up there. He wants to be up there with those leaders.
If the race were to end right now, the best Greg LeMond could do is 7th. He's got to move up past 6 riders to take the gold medal. That's Charly Mottet of France.
Charly Mottet had a few good days in the Tour de France this year. He's a very strong rider, very well liked in Europe. He's young, he's only 23 years old. He won the Grand Prix of Nations last year, so he's proven he too can win big bicycle races.
That lead trio of riders just ahead of our camera motorcycle as they're climbing through the academy now. They'll begin a descent. They'll get a little bit of relief here for just a few minutes, if nothing else.
These riders are giving 110% right now. They really want to stay away, and they know they're not that far ahead. But it's the only thing they can do is just to put their heads down and work together and try to get to the finish line in front of that big chasing pack.
9 more miles, and that's your gold, your silver, and your bronze. We just don't know in what order or whether that'll be the case.
I noticed when Greg LeMond went by the finish line and started to make his move, he kept looking over his shoulder. It was almost looking for somebody to go with him to help him out to try to make that run.
Greg LeMond would have a hard time bridging a gap like this on his own. He needs some help. He needs some other strong riders because, as I said before, it's more efficient to sit behind. You need that rest to get behind the other riders and take your turn at the front.
Our lead trio.
Actually, you can see right here the difference. Look at the front rider working very hard, and the back rider was just barely moving his legs. He was sitting there back there relaxing.
Rolf Galtz there in the white jersey was the silver medalist in the Olympic Games behind America's Steve Hague in a very short track event. He's made a nice transition to a 162-mile road race.
Rolf Galtz is a very fast rider, and he's showing he has good endurance today. You can see him there working very smoothly, very strongly. Moreno, Argentin, looks very, very smooth as well. These riders are really looking for to try to increase their gap as much as possible, but now you see Charly Mottet just staying in the back. He doesn't want to go to the front and help them work. That's going to slow down their efforts.
I was going to say, how much does it affect them of trying to think, okay, I don't want to take the lead on the final lap. I'm just not going to do it. Let you guys do all the work. I'll sit back here, so I'll be fresh. And you can see the distance between that front group and now the back group of 3, and then we have the big pack behind that.
Well, you know, I tell you what's happening here is that Argentin and Galtz must work together. Mottet looks back and he sees Laurent Fignon chasing. Fignon is a Frenchman, and he's also his System U teammate. So he thinks, aha, if Fignon can catch me and go with me, I'll have an advantage because I'll have a teammate. That forces these two to do the work, and it makes it a lot more difficult. He has the luxury right now of knowing that he has a teammate coming up.
How upset do the other 2 riders get if the one guy is sitting in the back and not helping?
Well, again, you're talking about the mind games that they play. Argentin knows he has to work at this point. He can't sit up and say, I'm not going to work either, because he wants to stay away. It's very frustrating, but it's part of the game, and cycling is a very big tactical game, and especially when you come down to the end of a long race like this.
Our lead trio, it's a short way to go, but it's a long way to go. And there's the chase, and the American Stars and Stripes jersey at the front of a long single file line of riders going on a descent, a very fast part of the race course. Ron Kiefel was in that breakaway and was caught. That is him at the head of the field right there. We're going to be coming back to the 1986 World Cycling Championships in Colorado Springs, Colorado, right after these messages from our local stations. The 1986 World Cycling Championships professional road race. I'm Brian Drever, working with Olympic champions Bruce Jenner and Connie Carpenter-Finney. Our lead trio of riders, Rolf Galtz from West Germany, Moreno, Argentin of Italy, and Charly Mottet of France. In that order, those 3 riders out in front of everybody else at this point in the final lap of the World Championships.
The riders have just come down the long descent. You can see this is a nice perspective because you see there's 3 chasers coming up. And behind them is a very large pack, still chasing, still holding out the hope that they can catch these 6 riders who are out in front.
That's, you can see right there, maybe 100 yards and only a handful of seconds at this point. The 3 leaders, Argentin in the front, working. Rolf Galtz in the white jersey of Germany, working. Charly Mottet really just taking a sleigh ride right now because he's got a teammate, Laurent Fignon, who is chasing. He's not going to do much to help this breakaway. He has already done quite a bit to help that breakaway. And we'd like to see Laurent Fignon in the middle right there. That's his teammate. So we have 2 Frenchmen who could combine forces right now. If Fignon's little group of 3 here on the screen catches the lead group of 3, that would put Fignon and Mottet at a 2-man advantage in this 6-man group.
Mottet seems to be in the best position right now because he is running in the lead group, and he's been running easily for the last half a lap. He obviously has to have a lot of energy left.
Yeah, I think he really is in a good position. That's a good point to bring up, Bruce, because he has a luxury right now of knowing his teammate is back there. He knows Laurent Fignon is coming up. He wants him to catch him. He doesn't want to be caught by this big pack of riders, but he does want that little chasing group of 3 to catch him. He'll have a little help. There is teamwork. There is tactics in cycling that is somewhat difficult to explain, but we see a good example right now of how these 2 riders, Moreno Argentin and Rolf Goltz, must keep the pace up, and Mottet can sit back and hope that his teammate comes up to him.
Or sit back and hope that if they get close enough to the finish line, he would be the fresher of the 3, as you alluded to, Bruce, and with that freshness, be able to sprint past the other 2 at the finish line. There's still a long way to go to that finish line, however. They're less than a half a lap, more than a half a lap to go, less than a half of a lap into this race, and the long climb and that little short killer hill where I think the hammer's going to drop. Connie, I think you and I agreed on that. The hammer's going to drop on that little hill a mile to a mile and a half from the finish.
You know, it's really hard to know what's in the minds of the riders right now. Of course, they're thinking about the finish. They want to get to the finish line. They want to be fresh at the finish line. Most of all, they want to stay away from that large chasing pack. But what is Rolf Goltz thinking now? Is he thinking, I'm too tired to sprint, I have to try to get away from these other 2? Or does he think, I can win this sprint, I can beat these riders, I've beaten them before? You know, it's hard to know. Every rider's mind is full of thoughts right now, and they must focus and intensely concentrate on what they're doing.
Now, what's the Italian? Looks like one of the coaches talking to him, telling him what's going on at that point?
Well, the coach is probably coming up and telling Argentin how much time they have, who exactly is chasing, how far the big pack is behind, and maybe he's telling him to cool it a little bit and not work too hard. Save yourself for the sprint. Don't give everything now. We want you to be world champion, not 3rd as he was last year.
What do you consider the sprint? How much is the sprint? The last half mile, the last mile on this course?
I would say the sprint per se is going to be the last couple of hundred yards. This last little climb, maybe even less than 200 yards. Anyone in contact, anyone in contention is going to have to come down to it in that last couple of hundred yards.
Here you see Rudi Altig, who is a famous West German rider and who is the coach of the West German team, come up to talk with Rolf Goltz to tell him what's going on. It looks like he's giving him a lot of encouragement. He's telling him he's got to go for it. This is it. It's all on the line. Rolf Goltz came to America for the Olympics in 1984 and was very disappointed to lose to Steve Hague, to our American Steve Hague. And he's been really proving himself as a professional. He made the transition from the amateur ranks to the professional ranks, and he's showing it today. He's a fantastic athlete.
That clenched fist leaves nothing to the imagination. We'll be back to the World Cycling Championships professional road race right after these messages. Force Academy side of the World Cycling Championships, the professional road race is in its final lap, in its final 10 minutes, if you will, at this point, after they have been racing better than 6 hours right now. And we have right here Rolf Goltz, who has apparently come out of contact with the other 2 breakaway teammates that he had. They are on a climb right now. This is the long ascent here. This is where your legs feel like they have daggers in them, Connie.
This is the last climb here, and it's a long one, as you say, and Rolf Goltz is struggling to keep up. You can see he's weaving a little bit. He's trying to keep the pressure on so he doesn't lose too much of a contact with this group, but Argentin looks really smooth at the front. The Italian is really proving that he's one of the strongest riders in the world right now, and Charly Mottet, of course, has been kind of resting, riding behind, and he looks strong as well.
This is a situation where Argentin is going to just keep the pressure on the pedals and hope that whatever happens behind him, that the others won't be able to keep his pace. He's been successful in shedding Rolf Goltz of Germany, and while Mottet here, sitting in second position behind Moreno Argentin, number 164 there. Mottet has been taking a sleigh ride. He's got a little more left, obviously, than Goltz has, because Goltz is, as we can see right here, 50, 75, maybe 100 meters behind.
Really, Moreno Argentin is probably telling Charly Mottet to help him out now to get to the front. It's the World Championships. Let's go. But But again, Charly Mottet knows he has a teammate, Laurent Fignon, who's chasing him. He wouldn't mind if he caught up, but at this point, it's pretty good odds. He's going to be first or second. He should work. They should continue to keep the pace up and stay away to the finish.
You could paint 100 different scenarios with just 2 riders right now.
It seems like the pack, which is way far behind at this point, just didn't make their move early enough, did they?
I don't know, Connie. I think we could probably divide camp on this to say that, well, maybe they feel like they still have enough time. There's certainly strength in numbers back there in that pack. If any one team or any couple of teams gets together and tries to start a chase, they certainly have strength in numbers right now. Here are 4 riders who are obviously trying to get a chase going of some kind. They are also on the ascent. They can see the leaders on this long, tremendously straight uphill climb.
I don't think anybody's catching Moreno, Argentin, and Charly Mottet at this point. I think that in terms of waiting too long, yeah, they certainly did. The 11 riders snuck off the front. They worked very well together, and then suddenly that group of 11 started to shatter as the riders reached different fatigue levels and saturation points, if you will, with the race itself. It's a long race. It's 162 miles, and it's amazing when you look at these 2 riders. They really do look remarkably fresh after riding for almost 6.5 hours.
Argentin looks very smooth, very competent, and he's obviously been very effective so far.
Moreno keeps looking back and waiting. Here's the pack as they're working up that same hill. But here's Moreno with the lead. He keeps looking back over his shoulder, waiting for Charly to say, "Come on, Charles, you know, let's get this thing moving."
He wants Mottet to come to the front. He doesn't want to pull Mottet all the way into the finish line and then get beaten. There's no prestige in being second at the World Championships. It's to win this event, to be able to wear the rainbow striped jersey, which is the official World Champions jersey. They get to wear that all next year, and there's so much prestige in this race. It's all or nothing now.
This is a large hill. Can you make up more time on the hills or on the downhill portions?
A small group can't make much time on a big pack on a downhill because the pack just can travel, especially a wide open downhill, much faster. These guys are working so strongly, especially Argentin, of course, who's sitting at the front, that he can keep the pace up, whereas the chase from the pack is more sporadic. It's up and down. You can see Steve Bauer now coming to the front, Jonas Kuhn of Norway behind him. They very much want to catch the leaders, but they've simply waited too long.
There you can see the cooperation, though, that is necessary if a successful chase is going to be made, that each rider must take his turn at the front of the field. None of the riders in this picture right here, except the one French team rider there, have anything to gain by staying back. They need to get a chase going. They need to form a partnership, an alliance, if you will, an international alliance in order to get a chase going. They've got the strength in numbers. They just need to make a cooperative effort.
Well, they just made that downhill run, so they're pulling out quite far away from it because the pack is still on the hill, and these guys don't have that much farther to go to the finish line.
There's no catching these 2 riders. It's a question now of whether Charly Mottet is really fresh, whether he really has the sprint to beat Moreno Argentin, or whether it's simply Moreno Argentin's day. He is looking fantastic at this point. He's not letting up. He's never wavered since their breakaway went, and he's looking very strong.
With a full lap to go, the gap between the leaders and this main group was 1.5 minutes. It's still standing at around that point. I tend to agree with every revolution of those pedals, Connie and Bruce, that there's no catching those 2 leaders. I tend to agree. I'm not ready to give up yet. I'm not ready to give up the chances of everybody else in that field, Greg LeMond, Bernardino, and the rest. But with every stroke of those pedals, the chances get slimmer and slimmer and slimmer.
Here comes that pack, or that hill that you were talking about earlier that you thought was really going to make the difference. Very short, steep hill.
And Mottet in the French tricolor on the right of our picture here, Argentin in the Italian jersey with the vertical stripes. Mottet right now has the advantage. He's fresher. There's no question about it. He's fresher because he's been. But now Argentin is attacking. You see the teeth gritting expression on Mottet. Mottet is giving it everything he has, but Argentin, look, just effortlessly smooth riding up that hill, and he has got Charles Mottet on the ropes right now.
I think you were right, Brian. Argentin made the move on that little steep hill, and Charly Mottet tried to answer him, and you could see the look in his face. He's going after him now, but Moreno Argentin is in total control of this race right now. It's an unbelievable effort on his part.
so cool,
You
so
notice
calm, and so
how he
confident.
tried to get the lead before the downhill so the other guy couldn't get in the draft.
Exactly. Now Charly Mottet has to catch. It's a short downhill. They go into a turn. Difficult to chase at this point. And even if Mottet does catch up, he's going to be very tired, probably more tired than Argentin, because Argentin just showed us how strong he is at this point. And we're within a mile of the finish, and Argentin is simply magnificent at this point.
The approach of
Mottet is making up some ground right here. He had to push real hard on that downhill.
He is, in fact, making up ground. He's got that slipstream to shoot into. He can move into that vacuum that's created behind Moreno Argentin, so that helps him on the downhill. And now you see they have come back together. And Argentin looking back at Mottet saying, okay, I've sent you a straight right to the jaw, and you've managed to come back from that. Let's see what comes up next.
But Argentin's also looking back to make sure that there isn't a rider coming up chasing him. He wants to make sure that it's his game now with Mottet, that he doesn't have to concern himself with the pack, which is quite a bit behind him. They're rounding the last turn into a long finishing stretch.
It's a curving finishing stretch. It's a one-on-one race right now. It's head-to-head competition, the way we always like to see it. Moreno Argentin in the front, wearing the number 164. Charles Mottet of France, number 105. Those are the two contenders for the World Championship of Professional Road Cycling, and they're in the last 300 or 400 yards of this race course right now.
Well, it's a cat and mouse game now. Argentin's looking back. He knows now that he is the stronger rider. He just doesn't want to sprint too soon. He doesn't want to give too much too soon. He wants to be able to have enough to get across the finish line first. Argentin was third in the World Championships last year. He's 25 years old. He doesn't want to lose the sprint. You can see they're at 200 meters to go right now. Argentin's still playing with Mottet. It's an uphill sprint, so it won't be as fast as some. And here they go. Here they go. Mottet's
mile race coming down to 200 yards. Mottet trying to make a move off the back. Argentin seems to be in control.
Argentin's well out in front of Mottet at this point. Charly Mottet gives up, and Moreno Argentin is the 1986 world champion.
What a great tradition of racing the Italians have had. Moreno Argentin continues that tradition. Here's the sprint for third, and oh, a very good finish for third place right there. And a very, there's all the riders rolling through. You can see each one reaching down, taking off his toe straps. 162 miles of racing is over. We're going to be right back to the World Championships of Professional Road Cycling right after these messages from our local stations. We're back live at the U.S. Air Force Academy. The World Professional Road Race Cycling Championship is concluded. And the results, unofficially but correct, shall we say, the winner of the bike race, Moreno Argentin of Italy, the runner-up, Charly Mottet of France, and third place, Giuseppe Saronni, also of Italy. The Italians getting first and third, the gold and the bronze medal here today, Connie.
Saronni is, of course, the 1982 world champion, and surprising he did so well today because he had a crash early on in the race. He got up, caught the group, and won the sprint from the bunch, but it was Moreno Argentin's day all the way.
He certainly seemed so calm and so cool and so collected and so professional and competent. He did a super job of, he seemed to have all his abilities in hand. There he is, being interviewed and receiving the accolades, the beginnings of the accolades of the crowd. And here's our replay right here. There's Moreno Argentin. This, keep in mind, is the last 300 or 400 yards of the race as they approach the final corner at the bottom of an uphill section, a snaking, sort of winding uphill section through the feed zone by the cabins, and there are the two leaders.
Argentin was very confident at this point. He had just made an attack. He knew Mottet was weak. He knew he was strong. He knew that he felt strong himself. I think Argentin knew he was in control, I guess I should say. And really Mottet at this point is just hanging on, hoping that he'll have enough to get around Moreno Argentin. But Argentin just waits and waits as they come through the long, windy section before the finish.
162 miles of racing comes down to 200 or 300 yards between two great professionals, two great athletes here. Moreno Argentin in the front of these of this pair of riders here. This is a replay of the finish. There's 200 meters to go, a little over 200 yards.
And if it looks a little slow right now, it's because they are going uphill, and they're not trying to sprint too early. Moreno Argentin makes his move. Mottet tries to come up and get around him, but there's no going around Moreno Argentin. He's just too fast.
Mottet tried and failed. Argentin is the world champion of professional road race cycling. We'll be right back after these local messages. The Air Force Academy World Professional Road Race Cycling Championships. Connie Carpenter, it's over. All that's left is the awards ceremony. Moreno, Argentin will reap the rewards of becoming a world champion right here in Colorado Springs.
Of course, for Moreno, Argentin, this is the day of his life. In Italy, cycling is the #1 sport. It's like winning the Super Bowl for them, and it's got to be a big day for Moreno, Argentin. He was in command the whole way.
There's our final standings. Moreno, Argentin of Italy, Charly Mottet of France, and Giuseppe Saronni of Italy. A 1-3 finish for the Italians. Here's the replay of the finish again. Charly Mottet, number 105 there, the French tricolor jersey in the back behind Moreno, Argentin. Charly Mottet drafting right now, although it's not significant on an uphill portion.